Today is April the 7th, and we are going to find out whether Donald Trump is the extreme bluffer or if something catastrophic is going to happen later today. He issued an ultimatum to Iran that they either open the Strait of Hormuz or they are going to experience hell on earth today, and today is the deadline. And actually, 20 minutes ago, before we are live right now, he just put out a statement on Truth Social. Donald Trump says, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world, 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death, we will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran." So we're going to focus this morning on what Tucker Carlson, his show that he did yesterday, and his perspective on Donald Trump. Because I've went back and forth on this. I don't know Tucker Carlson's motives. He says that he likes the man, he loves the man, Donald Trump, but it feels like he has turned a complete about face on Donald Trump. And we're going to look at what he said in the remarks that he is specifically focused on was on Easter morning. Donald Trump issued the ultimatum, and I'm not going to quote it here because Tucker is going to say it in this clip.
Easter is a uniquely joyful and peaceful moment, and yet that peace yesterday was shattered. That's not an overstatement. It was shattered for many observant Christians by a statement that the President of the United States put out at 8:03 a.m. Eastern Time on Easter morning that said this, and we're going to read it in its entirety, not in outrage or self-righteousness, but honestly in horror. Quote, "Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. 3 exclamation points. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch." All caps. "Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump." Now, a lot of people reading that imagined, of course, this can't be real. Did the President of the United States really just write that? And it is real. It is maybe the most real thing this president has ever done, and also the most revealing. On every level, it is vile. On every level. It begins with a promise to use the U.S. military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure in another country, which is to say to commit a war crime, a moral crime against the people of the country.
So I know a lot of people are jumping on this, and when he brings up the praise be to Allah, I have to point this out. Just him saying that Christians in these Arabic, they speak Arabic over there, that's their word for God. That's what they call God. Christians say, when they're talking about God, they say Allah. That's just the word for God over there. And I know Donald Trump, when he's using that, it's very provocative. It's sarcasm. It's to make a point, a greater point. Donald Trump is always going to say crazy stuff to get people riled up. He's not conventional. And every time we think that we understand the man, we don't. But what Tucker is bringing up is his disgust for Donald Trump, and it's coming through. And I don't know his motives. I don't know. I think Donald Trump turned against him, and now he is whatever Donald Trump says that Tucker is going to disagree with, and he's upset with. And I think this is a very pivotal point in history, of U.S. history, world history. But where the conflation is happening is Tucker is constantly berating Donald Trump and using Christian morals. And this is where I think people are getting the disconnect of there's the personal individual person that if you're a Christian, and then there's government, there's nations. And when the apostles were here and when Jesus was here, the last thing that they did was try to tell Caesar how to not be Caesar and to be the moral police over Caesar. They were out there to convert souls, to share the gospel, share the good news. They weren't in a position of the king needs to become Christian. And I know I want Donald Trump to be Christian, and he says he is. But Donald Trump is going through things. He's making decisions as a leader of the United States. When you're put in that role, because I'm always thinking about this, should I, if I was in that position, would I be like Truman and make the call to drop the atom bomb? Would I make the call? Would I be able to, even if I was a pilot, be able to drop bombs on people where it could hit civilians, people that are quote unquote innocent? I don't know if I could. And it doesn't even matter if I know if I could. I'm not in that position. It doesn't matter. You're not there. God hasn't put you there. The only people that are there, God has put Donald Trump where he's at, or any person that's in authority, and they're making calls. They're executing, in some ways, God's will. I mean, and always pretty much God's will. They wouldn't be there if God hadn't put them there, and they're doing things that we don't even understand. We don't see what's behind the veil. We don't see what God is doing, like in the heavenly realms. What God's will is. It's just before our eyes. But this is where the conflation happens, that we just think that as Christians, we need to impose our values upon our leaders. And it's great if they have those values. But to be our ultimate extreme end, it's really missing the point. On this next clip, I can kind of agree with Tucker, because he is about Paula White and what she said about Donald Trump, comparing him to Jesus, was over the top. And you should not do that, but let's take a look at this clip.
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price.
So true.
It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you.
It's hard to believe that's real. That is so vile. It's such a sacrilege. Standing in front of American flags in the White House with some kind of beta evangelical leader nodding along, as you liken the President of the United States to Jesus, the Christian Messiah, God in human form. How could you say something like that? How could the rest of us sit by and not protest when she said something like that? How could any Christian watch that and not feel revulsion? Well, because people didn't pay attention, or they didn't think about it. Oh, it's just the praise that Trump demands. Fine.
I think about, in the Bible, King Nebuchadnezzar. He was a man that he slaughtered Jews. He slaughtered a lot of people. He conquered nations. He was the pinnacle of power in his time in history. But God got to him. God made him a child of his, brought down his pride so that he became a follower of the true God that we see. We see his testimony in the book of Daniel. We see Nebuchadnezzar, that king, his testimony of how God brought him to humiliation so that he cried out to the true and living God. So all I'm saying is, I think it is disgusting what Paula White says, like making those comparisons. It's hard for me to say that some other Christian's doing something terrible, because we all have our unique roles and personalities, and maybe God's calling us to something that we don't necessarily agree with, but maybe God's behind it. Her saying that, to me, it does rub me wrong. I don't think we should be comparing any person to God, who is Jesus Christ. I don't think we should do that. She's making an analogy to like drive home the point of what President Trump has went through. It does rub me the wrong way as well, so I get that. It is kind of repulsive to me. But maybe the struggle that Donald Trump is going through is his own pride. Maybe that is something that he could struggle through, and God needs to bring him down low. Maybe her like putting that in front of him and God is watching. Are you going to accept that praise, or are you going to, in humility, say no? We don't know Donald Trump's heart. I don't know his heart. We don't know anyone's heart. And we don't know what God is doing behind the scenes behind anyone. So where this goes, because we're going to find out that after today, we could be in a completely different world. If God, if not, that's not a Freudian slip. If Donald Trump, I mean, just even saying that, like, there will be a man in the future that will accept praise as God. So Donald Trump, God only knows who the Antichrist is. I don't think it's him, but I know some people do. But if God decides to allow Donald Trump to do something next level tonight, of ramping up, like of dropping a bomb, of just decimating their entire infrastructure over there in Iran, behind it, ultimately, anything. I mean, you can't get away from the fact the worst atrocities in the world, whether you look at it as an atrocity or as something that is just needs to be done. Everything happens, especially at the power level that these world leaders have. At their level, God is behind it all, pulling the strings, and not necessarily in pulling the strings. His will is being played out in world affairs. So if that goes to that level where that happens, and it's not for me really to decide, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't think, at the personal individual level, I think we should all be trying to reach people's souls and try to let them know that there is a way that you don't have to go to hell, and it's not through Islam. And it's like, this is the struggle that I have. Like, if people are born into this ideology where it's not just like peaceful Islam or being a Muslim, but they're born into this radicalized worldview: death to America, death to Israel, death to all Jews, death to everyone, except if you're a Muslim. It's like, what do you do with that? Because I know I've lived with a lot of people that are peaceful Muslims, that are good people, a lot better people than me. And that's the point. The way you get to heaven, the way you get to be with God is not based on what you even do at all. It's not. It's based on whether you're forgiven or not. And if you're forgiven, then your life will change. So I could say, I know there are a lot of people that are a lot better than a lot of good Christians, but it's just, are you connected with Jesus Christ or not? Muslims are not connected with him. They're denying him. But that doesn't give them cause they need to die. But what do we do with people that they're going to not only want to strap bombs to them and be suicide bombers and blow up as many people as they want, as they can, so that they can get to paradise and have virgins in heaven. Not only that, but they are putting into their minds of their own children that you need to do the exact same thing. What do we do with that? When is it time for our government leaders to put a stop to that, to not let it infect the rest of the world, infect other minds, and just take with the sword and spread that ideology? When is it time? When is enough? I'm not saying, because I'm not in that position that Donald Trump is in, or that any of our leaders are in, but they're there and they're making the call, and really behind it's God. God is making the decision. He's made the decision. We're just seeing it played out. It can feel like tough to accept that. It really can. But at the end of the day, like, Tucker is his disgust with Donald Trump, putting that out there. No one would get this attention. Like, that's how you got to get people's attention. I just see it. Donald Trump is just, he wants to say the craziest thing possible. And to him, it might even be crazy. He's just a deal maker, and he's trying to make things happen that he wants. And he's doing it through coercion, pressure, leverage on all these other these other nations. And I get the whole Israel angle, because if I went into that, like, if someone, and I know most people right now don't support Israel. Most people are not standing with the Jews and with the Israel nation. And it's like us doing what we are doing in the United States. I'm not going to sit back and say, we're doing it for America. If I didn't stand with Israel, I would probably be pissed too. Honestly, I would be in disagreement, tearing my hair out if I had hair. But from my point of view, and from a lot of Christian Zionists, it's not that we think Israel is doing the right thing always, but we understand that the only lasting world power is going to be Israel. And to align as closely as possible with them, even though they get us into a whole lot of mess, that we are suffering, and our own people are suffering. It comes to that. But really, in this war, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen American soldiers dying. We just rescued our 2 pilots that got shot down over there this past weekend. So we haven't seen those levels. But overall, the good of our own nation, and everybody, Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Dave Smith, everybody out there, they're going to say the exact opposite, because they want to disconnect as completely as possible from Israel. They don't want us to be close to them. They don't want to see them as our greatest ally. This is not popular. This is lasting, and honestly a real nuance and perspective that is going to carry us through as the United States to be to actually survive, because Israel survives. Other nations are not going to survive. Other nations are going to crumble and fall. And if we turn our back on Israel, if we do, which we will, and I'm saying this because I can see the writing on the wall, because the people in the administration are there now are not going to be there forever. And I know what's coming down the line, that people that support Israel, they're going to be old news, and they're going to probably have to go into the byways, the highways, or whatever. But I don't care. I care more about standing for truth than standing for what is going to be popular. I don't care about what's popular. God's eye and his hand is going to be with Israel. The United States has been here for 250 years, and I'm very thankful. We are probably the greatest nation that's ever been, Next probably would be Israel. They haven't the blessing has not been fully unleashed upon them. That will happen when the Jews accept the Messiah. Once the Jews embrace Jesus, and it's universal for Israel and the Jews, that will happen. We're not going to, nothing is going to compare to the blessing that they're going to receive, and that they will be the dominant power. But I know we're going to go through tribulation and struggle before we get there. Tucker Carlson, his mindset, where he's at on this is really decision time. Decision in our own hearts, our outlook as individuals. This is where we're at. Where are we going to stand? But really, that is just for our own peace of mind. Are we going to be at peace and understanding that, whatever happens, that we're okay with it because God's in control? Or are we going to crumble and just fall to oblivion in our own souls and this hatred, which is going to turn out for our not our well-being? And I just think what Tucker's doing, he's emblematic of this moment in history of turning on Donald Trump. When Donald Trump, he's probably doing it for his own purposes, but maybe that God will bring him to his knees to be prideful about this, to not accept the praise of being compared to Jesus. I just think Donald Trump has been given the call. What he's going to make, and we're going to see it all played out today. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be dropping bombs, but I don't know. In the sense of completely obliterating their infrastructure, I don't necessarily see that, but I am not good at making predictions. All right, we'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment, and have a good day.